Okay. Welcome, everybody. I feel like we stopped chazering. We stopped reviewing from the beginning because there's different chunks in it. So first of all, welcome back. Also, if you're listening, I'm going to start to do this in every class. You have to listen, you have to share, you have to teach, and you have to spread it. I was talking to Sarah Rubin, and she's like, every time I'm talking to anybody, she's like, in Tanya, and in Tanya. So I'm like, okay, fine. So at least we know what we're doing the right thing. We're in the right direction. So I'm not going to do a full Chazara, but I'm just going to go back a little bit to these chapters of 41 to 50, because this is a little bit of a separate chunk. Everything that we've been doing up until now has been leading us up into these meditations, kind of, because everything, every time I speak about a concept, it goes back to the beginning. Every time we speak about, let's say, Chachma Bina, we're chapter 2. We talk about meditation. Chapter 3. We talk about this. It all goes back to those beginning chapters, and we're starting to see it develop. So what we were talking about, let's say if we were to pick two feelings that we were talking about for meditation, what would those be? Awe and love. Right, okay? And in Hebrew, it's Avanira, right? So Avanira. So what did we say? What do we know about Avanira?
Yira comes first.
Yira comes first. They complement each other. One is kind of like the vessel to be able to carry the love. So that's why Yira has to go first. We said Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. Yira, boundaries, or any of the words that we said for Yira, like inhibition, right? So what was the lowest level inhibition what was the lowest level of Yira that we discussed last week? Punishment, right? So why would I then be filled with awe? Because why? Because I'm scared, because there's consequences, something's gonna happen to me if I don't behave, right? So that's the lowest level. Why is that so low? Obviously, by the way, if even we get to that, I think we're good. I'm okay if I get there.
It's superficial, it's not coming from the heart, it's not coming from...
It's coming very much... It's very immature, right? We spoke about, remember last week we spent a lot of time explaining concepts that are abstract and concepts that are concrete. Concrete is very easy. We start off with concrete, right? It's on, it's off. And then you're like, well, there's a gray area. Little kids don't understand a gray area at all. That's an abstract concept. So we set up one way to get our minds thinking and to get our kids' minds thinking is think about big, huge, abstract concepts, and that will get you a little bit of feeling. So that was 41, that was a lower level. Okay. Then what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about another 2 more levels of awe, of fear. And these are all things that if you think it, you will feel it, and then you will what? Then you will behave. Yeah. Exactly. Then you'll do it, right? We want to be well behaved. That's what Tanya is teaching us. Tanya is teaching us how do I become the best version of myself by doing, with action. So I want to behave. So how do I get to behaving? I love it because it's you think behavioral is it's the hardest thing, it's the furthest thing. No, that's exactly what we should be thinking when we are meditating. We're we want to behave. I want to be good. We all have it within us, but we want to. How do we get there? We're going to have to meditate. So we think it, we feel it, and then we behave. Exactly. Then we do it. Okay. So these chapters really are all of what these next chapters are doing. We'll try to do 2 today, is giving us ideas of things that we should think about in order so that we act correctly. Okay. Those are all the chapters. Okay. So now there's this concept here we're going to start with Mem Gimel 43, where he starts off by saying, the parak starts off by saying, Im ein chachma, ein yira. Im ein yira, ein chachma. What does that mean? Im ein yira, ein chachma. If there's no fear, then there's no knowledge. So let's talk about what do we know about chachma. Let's just go back to the beginning. Knowledge is power. What else do we know about chachma that's more significant than knowledge? What is chachma? Go back all the way to the beginning when we spoke about Chachma Bina Das.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's everything within one. It's not necessarily focused. Yeah, it's not necessarily focused on one thing. It's an idea. It could be yesh me'ayin. It could be came from nothing, right? Like a burst, a vastness, a greatness. Yes, from Hashem. So what we're saying in essence really is im ein chachma, im ein yira ein chachma. If I don't have boundaries, if I don't have respect, if I don't have awe, if I don't have fear, then ein chachma, then I'm not going to be able to get closer to Hashem. How do we understand that?
Because those are the ideas that Hashem gives us. Chachma is the first of ideas that Hashem gives us, and then
right. So if we want to access that chachma, what do we have to do in order to access it?
We need to respect Hashem.
We have to be open to it. So we have to like carve out a space for Hashem. So Chachma here is really Hashem. If you think about it, if you want to get close to Hashem, you have to have Yira. So Ein Yira, Ein Chachma. But there's this saying that like I always hated when I first started like working in like the work field. After I graduated college, I'm like, hey, I'm ready. I'm going to work. Like, hey, what do? I have a master's in like psychology. I'm so excited. No jobs. Like there was like a freeze in the Board of Ed, and it was like only if you're bilingual. I'm like, I speak Yiddish, and like I remember like thinking my first job was like working at OHAL in like in a home. I think I calculated at the end, like I had like negative $17 an hour, like after babysitting and after taxes and after traveling and like everything. And like, I remember thinking when I'm there, I'm like, this is so crazy. Like I'm just doing this to put this on my resume. Do you know what I mean? And then I worked at another place. It was like very little, whatever. It's because you can't get a job if you don't have experience, but you can't have experience if you don't have a job, right? You know that like, it's like you're like chasing your rat's tail. Like how do you get it if you don't have it? So the idea here is if Ein Chachma Ein Yira, then in another place it says Ein Yira Ein Chachma. So it's like if you don't have fear of Hashem, you can't have Hashem in your life, right? You won't make space. The first one, let's go to the first one. Ein Yira Ein Chachma. If you don't have awe and respect and boundaries for who Hashem is, you're not going to be able to connect to Him. Why is that? What does Yira do? What's that like character trait that Yira does to us that will make a space for Hashem?
Humility, like knowing that like Hashem is so big.
Hashem is so big, right?
Awe-filled.
Awe-filled, right? Like not awful, awe-filled. And this is actually the first level of fear that we're going to talk about in this parak. That if you look back at the world, right? Like, you know, when you're in camp and like you have to like sleep outside. I hate when they do this. Like, they make you like, what? It's your favorite part? And then like you wake up in the morning and the dew is like on your face and your mattress is wet. And I'm always like, why am I doing this? But at night when you're like laying down there and you're like looking at the sky, like what's everybody doing? What's everybody saying? Whoa. Like, oh my gosh, you see the stars, you find the Big Dipper. And I used to just lie and be like, yeah, of course I see the Big Dipper. You did it, yeah. I'm like, hey, then I would have gone to Sternberg. Like, if I really want to sleep outside, like, I'll do that. Right. But like, let's say like you go on a plane, you look at the window and you're like, oh my gosh, Marabu Masach Hashem. Yeah? Oh, okay. Lots of children home today. So you see like Marabu Masach Hashem, when you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, this world is so big, it brings upon tremendous humility. That's really what Yira here. Yira is interpreted here as like, I'm making myself smaller for Hashem by recognizing that this is Hashem. Like, whoa. Okay, so that's the lower level of Yira, and he refers to it as Yira Tata, which is like the lower level of Yira. Hold on, maybe there's another Tata, like it's Aramaic, like lower down. Tachas, yeah. Like, and the opposite would be Ilah, which is like higher. Okay, so like there's Yira Tata, which is the lower one, which is humility. Like, and also by the way, with humility, it's so cool because if you think about it, whenever I'm like not humble. It's, when are you like not humble? What's like a moment where you're like,
When you're good at something.
When you're good at something. When you're accomplished, when you feel good and you feel like you got this, you have a control, right? That moment that you experience is good, but it's not going to lead you to Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem is like, why you say no?
No,
like, yeah, right. Oh no, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not right. No, the idea where Yiras Hashem, like there's no negative repercussions of having awe for Hashem. There's nothing bad that can come out of it. So that's how it has to start. That's how it has to be, and that creates the vessel for you to have Hashem in your life. But it is a lower level if you think about that. Like, it's not coming. It's a little bit higher than Ayin Ra Ozen Shomas, right? Because Ayin Ra Ozen Shomas is like, I'm just going to behave. I'm just going to be in my best behavior. I'm going to be a good girl. Now we're saying, oh my goodness, look at Hashem's beautiful world. This is amazing. I want to recognize Hashem. I want to make space for Hashem here. Sometimes I think about this. I forgot if it's like Kivi and Tuki. It's like, when you're davening, you're talking to Hashem, right? So automatic. Do you know that song? Yeah. It's a very special thing when you're talking to a king. When you're not. Yeah. So that idea of like when you're davening, talking to Hashem, what is that? Like, what's the underlying theme of that song? The awareness of Hashem. Did nobody watch Kivi and Tuki? Listen, watch. Oh, yeah. It was a tape. I'm like, anybody watch Kivi and Tuki? It's a tape. I was like a drop. Kivi and Tuki, like, they were aliens, right? Were they aliens? Yeah. Yeah? They're aliens. I remember, by the way, when I saw the cover of the tape, I was like, they were like Teletubbies, right? I know. They came from outer space at Country Yossi. It's very strange. We need to read this into it. That, my whole childhood was that, the Magic Yarmulke. Where's Zadie? When Zadie was young, the best. Marvel's Machine. I know. When Zadie was young. What? Where's Zadie? When Zadie was young, Tale 2, I could say it by heart. I was like, sometimes I call Little Rascals, but like Shmuel Konda is like the longest Pesach. I never got into that one. I never got into the talking coins either. I was like Magic Yarmulke, like all the way. Okay, sorry. This is like I always say, like this is like my childhood. Yeah. You're learning a lot. Okay, so what does it mean? Like, what's the underlying message of when you're davening, talking to Hashem? As he was just saying, that it brings upon a recognition of like awe of Hashem, and it causes you to behave better. Remember, we said everything is to cause you to behave. So one level is I'm scared of Hashem, I'm going to get punished. Another one is like, oh my goodness, Hashem, you are so great. I'm standing before the King of Kings. You are amazing. I'm going to have a lot of awe for you. And then there's a higher level of Yira, and this Yira is referred to as Yiras Boshes. I feel bad. I realized we did not remember. We didn't go back to the vocabulary words from last week. We talked about Yigias Habasar, Yigias Hanefesh. So those were two ways to get to it. Okay, so now anyway, the lower level of Yira is Yira Tata, which is the lower level, is where I am in awe of Hashem's world. The second one, the higher one, is called Yiras Boshes. Boshes, what's the shoresh of Boshes? Busha, right? What is Busha?
Shame or guilt.
Shame or guilt. Which one? Shame. Right. Guilt is, what is guilt? Feelings.
You're upset about action.
About your actions, your deeds. But shame is you're embarrassed of
Yourself. Who you are.
yourself. We could tell when we have therapists in the room, like, you know. So the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is I feel bad about what I did. Shame is I feel bad about who I am. So, but like really, we spoke about like in chapters, I think it was like 34, how like it's not real. There's no such thing as shame, right? What do we say? How do you like? I don't either remember. I don't either fully remember. I went back right away to listen to something to like class 10.
Because like
It's not a Jewish thing, right? We don't believe in it.
Well,
Right,
it kills
right.
the avodas Hashem. I mean, you can't connect to Hashem.
Right, when you're focused on your shame. But by the way, here's the thing. So this idea of Yiras Boshes is not a toxic shame. It's not a bad shame. It's actually a healthy shame. Okay? It's an anivos, right? It's like a deep level of
Where you come from, where you're going, basically.
where do you come from? Where do you go? We got so many songs. Right. That's what it is. It's like right. Where do I come? I come from the dirt. So it's a shame of like, but to the degree where I probably don't even belong here. Like I shouldn't even be here. Like Hashem is so great that why am I taking up space in his world? Like who am I to take up space in this world? It's
I
like
flip it. Like how lucky am I to have this? Like
right.
To me,
Negative talk is not good.
So
right.
like,
Right.
how am I worthy? Like more like that. Like
How am I worthy? I like that.
It's like the words of Mishnah. It's like very
Oh.
with this.
Yicholim lam- Oh wow, yeah, right. That's a place where like we have no makam to stand here because you are so great. But that's called. So this is Yiras Boshes. This is Yiras Ilah. This is a higher way of connecting to Hashem. Why? Because it's a way of recognizing that I just want to dissolve into the oneness of Hashem. Like I just want to be one with Hashem. Remember when we were talking about the sun rays and we were talking about how creation itself is really not real, right? It looks like it's real. It looks autonomous. It looks like it's happening. It looks like we're walking and we're driving and we're going to work. But really, if you would trace that, traffic lane that you're in all the way back up to the sun, there's no traffic in the sun because everything is one in the world, in the sun. So too with Hashem. It looks like there's things happening here, but really it's all swallowed up into one. So if I look at myself in an anivistic way or in a way of like, oh my gosh, Hashem, you are so great. How could I be here in your presence? You will automatically come to a higher level of awe because you'll tap into that concept of bittul. Remember we spoke about bittul, and this was like one, Shei's Taub has a lot of things that I like, but one of them is like bittul is be the tool. I want to literally be a merkava, a conduit for Hashem, that I'm so clear that it's almost like I'm non-existing. That's that idea of Yiras Boshes, that like I'm so, not that I'm embarrassed, I did something wrong when I was a kid, I lied or I cheated or I stealed, I am a liar, right? Like you think these things in your head. No, don't think that. That's bad shame. That's not shame that we want to connect to. The shame that we want to connect to is that, like, I can't believe